Hey, and welcome to the webinar today, Email Marketing Masterclass with myself, Matt Wilkinson, and Ryan Lazanis. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, Matt, doing pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, great, thank you. And hello to everyone joining the session today. So it'd be great to know where you're dialing in from. I was actually thinking that when I write that, dialing is such an old-fashioned way of saying things, but I don't know the alternative. So where are you connecting from today? Type it into the chat. I'd love to know where you're coming from today. I'm in the South Island of New Zealand in a little town called Wanaka. Where are you, Ryan?
I'm in Montreal, Canada, so directly on the other side of the world as you, Matt. I don't know
Yeah,
how you're just getting into summer over there, I guess.
yeah, start of spring. It's quite nice. We're getting sort of like 19, 20 degrees, but still can have a frost in the morning. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
how
we're
about
we're
you?
on the other end of it, so I'd
Yeah.
rather be where you are right now.
That's cool. Okay, well, hello to Gary in Ireland. How are you doing? We'll get kicked off in just a second. Now, just a bit of housekeeping. So if you've got any technical issues, you can use the chat to get in touch with us. I'd normally have somebody else on the session today, but she's in Australia and I didn't want to get her out of bed at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'll endeavor to fix those issues for you. We're going to be recording this session. Let me just double check that is recording. It is recording. And we will send that video out to you along with some links and things like that after the session. Oh, we've got Carla. I know Carla. She's in Australia, so she must be up pretty early. She's saying that Anthea should wake up a bit earlier. I'll tell her that. And hi to Leanne. How are you doing? Well, look, we're going to keep this session nice and short and action-packed for you. And before we just get into the content today, we'll just tell you a little bit about ourselves. So, Ryan, will
Sure.
you give us a little bit of background to yourself and Future Fund?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a CPA in Canada. I started an accounting career in a pretty small traditional accounting firm. I worked there for about 5 years, went into industry briefly, never really liked the repetitiveness around the month-end close, and decided to go off and start a business of my own in 2013 called Zen Accounting. It was one of the first online firms in Canada when I started it, and the idea was really to make the lives of small business owners easier, and utilize technology, utilize the cloud. And in Canada, it was still a pretty novel idea at the time, and I started the business as a one-man show. Really didn't know much about anything at that stage of the game, and ended up for the first few years trying to figure out a model that could scale. Ended up growing the firm to about a team of 15 over a 5-year period. Had a lot of interest from outside firms that wanted to acquire expertise, being a little bit more technology focused, and having an inbound, a bit of a marketing engine behind it as well, coming from content marketing. And went through an acquisition from a larger European firm in 2018. And in 2019, I started Future Firm, which essentially helps other firm owners fast track the growth of an online scalable firm of their own. So I do a little bit of coaching at the moment, one-to-one coaching, and I have some new programs, some new online membership models that's going to bundle in online courses, coaching, and community together. So the idea is really to help firm owners learn from my experience of crafting a modern firm from scratch to sale. And yeah, that's basically what I'm doing in Future Firm at the moment.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. And we will share details of Future Firm and how you can get in touch with Ryan later on in the session. So I don't have the accounting background that Ryan's got, but what I do have, and especially in terms of email marketing, is unfortunately I can say 2 decades in marketing. I started my first business in 2000, which was an e-commerce business, and the primary tactic that we used to grow that business was email marketing, amongst a bunch of other things, but that was what really delivered results for me. And we grew that to a 7-figure business within 3 years. And so for me, email marketing was set in my mind early as this was a really powerful tactic, and it has continued to be so through several companies that I've worked for. So as a marketing consultant for a while, I used email marketing to promote everything from Paul McCartney concert way back in 2007. I worked for one of the biggest arts festivals in Europe. We used email there, a big skincare brand. And for BizInc, that's been the primary tool that we've used to grow that business. And with BizInc, we do digital marketing and websites for accountants and bookkeepers. And we've worked with several hundred firms from all over the globe. And so I'm going to be sharing with you what we've learned from doing that. We send literally hundreds of thousands of emails, millions of emails actually now, every year for accounting firms. And so we've got aggregated anonymous data across all of that. And so I'll be sharing with you some of that stuff as well. So we're backing this stuff up that we're saying with that real data from accounting firms all over the globe. Cool. Well, that's enough about us. Let's get into the session today. And actually, I was going to mention it earlier. Was telling Ryan, we've just had a bit of we've not called it a rebrand, we've called it a brand evolution. And so this is the first time I'm actually showing this off. So let me know what you think about it, maybe in the chat. I'll be keen to know your thoughts.
I think it looks great, Matt. I don't know if we lost you there, but I see you frozen on the screen at the moment. Maybe if someone could just chime in on the chat and let us know if you can hear me, and if you can, I could kind of pick things up. So if you could just chime in on the chat. Okay, good. So, all right, we have Ugo here. We have a bunch of familiar faces here. We lost Matt, so it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out at the moment, because I don't have control of the slides. But why don't we just start off like when Matt comes back, we'll jump back into the next slide. Oh, I'm the host now. Okay, so I'm gonna do this on the fly here, so give me a moment while I figure this out. Oops. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, and let me just, all right. So I don't have the chat here, okay. All right, so why email marketing? I hope you guys could see my screen. I don't have the chat showing up here. Okay, one second. All right. Yeah, so, all right, good. So why email marketing? So I actually, when I ran my firm, almost 100% of my business came from content marketing. Mostly through organic Google search results, mostly through blogging. And that's kind of how I discovered the benefits of content marketing in an accounting firm to drive traffic. I actually never leveraged email marketing when I ran my firm, but I really, really wish I did, because I've really witnessed the power of it as I launched Future Firm. And when I launched Future Firm, one of the first things I did was start an email list. And what I realized is, as people were adding to my list and as I gained new subscribers, I realized that there was a direct link and a direct line to my audience, and I was not dealing with any algorithms. So when you're posting on Google, for instance, when you have a blog, you don't know how you're going to rank. You don't know if people are going to read your blog. You don't know what that's essentially going to look like. When you're posting on social media and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, you don't know who's going to see your post and when people are going to see your post. But when you're sending an email, you have certainty that whoever you're sending your email is going to receive that email, and it's just a matter of them opening that email or not. So you really have a direct line to your audience. There's no algorithms involved. And just for a point of reference, you know, I've sent out about 100,000 emails to date since I started my email list about a year ago. And I have about a 60% open rate, which means 6 out of 10 people are actually opening my emails. and I have a click rate of about 20%, which means 20% of everyone that received that email is clicking and engaging on certain types of content within the email. So you're really not going to get those kind of statistics with any other kind of online marketing tactic, in my opinion. So I really like the fact that you can get a direct line to your audience. You're not dealing with any algorithms. You generally get pretty good open and click rates if you're sending out quality content. But over and above that, it's super easy to manage. It's very, very cheap as well. So it's a great form of online advertising, a great form of online marketing. And it's really a rinse and repeat process, because once you have a general process involved for sending your emails, you're just kind of repeating the same thing as time goes on. So these are some of the reasons why. And the last thing I would add is it's a great way to nurture your audience. So as you gain subscribers, as your email list grows, people see your name in their inbox on an ongoing basis. And provided you're sending good content, valuable content to them, you're constantly getting in front of that audience. And it's very difficult to duplicate that with any other kind of online form of advertising. So these are some of the reasons why I really like email marketing for my business. Matt, I'm not sure if you're here.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
All right, cool. So I got control of the screen here, so you'll
Yeah,
have to
that's
maybe
cool.
walk me through it, or I could
that's fine.
stop.
Well,
okay, cool.
No, I'll just tell you when to flick it on. That they're
All
not
right,
complicated.
cool.
Sorry about that. I don't know even what happened. This Zoom just dropped out, and then I came back. So you're a true pro and kept things going for us. So thank you for that.
You're just
I
throwing
heard
me for a
most of
loop
what.
there, Matt.
Well, look, I would double down on everything that you're saying there. And one of the big things I think to recognize is that like every business owner's got an email address, right? So how many of your clients or prospects are on, say, Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn? And even if they are, how often do they check it? Whereas if you think of business owners, they check their inboxes probably way too much. Like, several times a day, people are in their inboxes. And so, it gets, like Ryan said, you're getting through to people. More than that as well is that, people open emails, and they actually really open emails from accountants. And we know that because, as I mentioned earlier, we send literally over 100,000 emails a month in certain months for accounting firms. And the open rates that this is aggregated across all our clients. So Ryan's rate of like 60% is really high, but that's also because you send a newsletter, I think. If you wove in like promotional emails and stuff, it might bring that down a little bit, but 60% is really high. To give you kind of like something to anchor that with, MailChimp, which is one of the most popular platforms in the world for sending emails, they publish a list of email benchmarks. So I'm going to put that into the chat in just a second, and let's fire that up. And you can have a look at these benchmarks. So you can see the top performing category. It changes over time, but it's usually something like government, and it's like 28% open rate, 5% click. And that's quite good for general email. So Ryan's is really high, but on our platform, the open rate for the last 6 months, I checked it yesterday, was 38%, and the click rate was about 5%. So this is for all kinds of emails, transactional emails, promotional emails as well. But what that says is you've got an open rate, which is 10% higher than MailChimp's best performing category. So people open emails from their accountants. Oh, hang on. Let's get this back into the chat to everybody. Hold on. There's the link for you. So other things that Ryan said, look, it's cheap. A platform like MailChimp is free. And it's also easy. I think that, something like, say, SEO, which, I see firms getting involved in, that is like highly technical marketing tactic that even for a marketer like myself, we don't tend to get in any way deeply involved in that stuff, yeah, I see firms doing search engine optimization, which is kind of way outside their skill base. Whereas what I would say, something like email, if you can, write and understand your customer, it's not a hard thing to do. So I really like it from that point of view as well. I guess a couple of things as well, like, would you agree with this one? It's really scalable and repeatable in that, if you've got a good email, you've got a good format for doing things, you can send that to 100 or 10,000 and same effort.
Yeah, totally. I mean, once you have a set process in place, it takes a little bit of time to figure that out. But once you have that in place, it's quite repeatable. And as you mentioned, sending an email to 3 people or 10,000 people is the same amount of effort. So, I fully agree with you on that. I'm seeing that David in the chat is saying that there's issues with freezing. So I'm not sure if that's coming from our end, if that's coming from his end, if anyone else is experiencing that, let us know in the chat.
Yep.
There's also another question I saw from Rachel. So maybe we'll try and circle back to her question after at the end of this presentation, if unless you disagree there. Okay, so
No, that's
Rachel's saying
fine.
that there's Rachel's
Yeah.
saying there's some freezing happening as well. So yeah,
I'm actually wondering whether there's a bit of a Zoom issue, because my internet was fine when I got booted. So I'm wondering whether there's something going on with Zoom. So we can only apologize for that. I don't think it's at our end, because I can see your screen fine, Ryan, and it wouldn't be connected to me now because you're sharing. So I wonder whether Zoom is having a few issues.
It could be. I see there's
keep...
Carla that mentioned it's okay. If people are continuing to experience anything, we have Andrew here. Good to see you, Andrew. Okay, David says good. All right, so let's move some of these technical matters aside and get to some of the good stuff here. So
cool.
let's maybe just switch slides here.
So
Matt,
next one.
who do you think we should be sending emails to as part of email marketing?
Yeah, sure. So for me, there's 3 groups you should be sending to, but I was just interested to launch a quick poll here. So I'm going to throw that up now. And the question I'm asking is, do you have a prospect email list? So I suspect everyone's got a list of clients. I mean, I would hope you have a list of clients and their email addresses. But I wonder if you have a list of prospects. This is something I ask quite a lot, and I'm often surprised by how few firms do. Looks like quite a few do, actually, so this is good. So by prospects, I just mean people who aren't clients that you're trying to sell to. Some people might call that leads as well, but basically anyone who's not your client that you're trying to market to. A few more seconds, just fill that in. Okay, cool. Let's wrap up that poll. So I will share those results with you. So we can see that 63% of you do have a prospect list, 37% don't. So look, I would be sending emails to your clients, obviously. So it's marketing 101 that your existing clients are your best source of new business. So definitely be sending emails to clients. I'd also have like a prospect list, so people who you'd like to become clients. And I'd throw another one in there, which would be referral partners as well. So, you've probably all got referral partners, which might be lawyers or, other professional services firms. And I think that engaging them with good content can keep you top of mind with them and get more of those warm referrals that you really want to get. So would that tally up with what you'd think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I was mentioning, on one of the previous slides, that like I really wish I had an email list when I was running my firm. Like I really see the power of it now. It's one of like the main sources of business now is really my email list as part of future firms. So, even I had everything, all my prospects on a CRM. I had it on HubSpot previously in my last firm, and I would follow up with them periodically manually, deals that wouldn't come through. And like, that's something, if I had an email list, it would be far more scalable, far more automated, just to make sure I was nurturing those prospects along. Now with Future Firm, when I started, I really started my list from scratch. And, you know, what I did is I just kind of went out on social media, had a few blog posts. People liked those blog posts. I had a few calls to action on those blog posts, and they started signing up in that fashion. And most people that are signing up are, I would say, you know, prospective clients. And you know, there's a variety of other people that sign up as well, but for the most part, you know, I'm building an audience of prospective clients, and obviously there's current clients on that list as well. But I'd probably echo your sentiments, Matt.
Yeah, and I think the sort of next phase of this is you've got your basic lists and how you would define those, but the segmentation is where you can really get a bit more clever with email to start really sending people the stuff they're specifically interested in. And Rachel asks a question in the chat, which is that she's experienced with dynamic content, and she's interested to hear what our thoughts are on that. So we use HubSpot as well, like you do, Ryan, and there is the potential to do dynamic content there. And I suppose what I would say in broad terms, you know, we could go into this really deeply, would be it's potentially really good, but you've got to be really careful with that stuff, because I find that you can make assumptions about people which aren't actually necessarily right because you don't have enough data. So it's like, you know, you say we think you're interested in this because of that, but are they? You know, it's really hard to know that stuff. So I think if you've got a huge amount of data and you've got, you know, thousands of people going through your website, which most accounting firms don't, then maybe that stuff works. But, you know, if you don't have a huge amount of data, and when I say, I was having it in a conversation about this on LinkedIn where someone was saying, testing which day to send, and, oh, we should try different days. The problem with that is I don't think if you've got a few hundred on your list, I don't consider that data, because it's just not enough. You know, you could send it on one day, a Tuesday, then you send it on a Wednesday, and the Wednesday gets a better open rate. But was that because, you know, the sun was shining, or, you know, the sports team had won, or, you know, whatever? You just don't know. There's not enough control, like a control experiment. And there's, you know, so, you know, I think you need tens of thousands before you start getting proper statistical accuracy.
I'd agree on that. And I'm not super fancy with my list. I don't have it heavily segmented whatsoever. I have started tagging. I'm using ConvertKit at the moment, which uses a tagging system. So I've started tagging you know, all subscribers on the list to eventually be able to segment and be eventually able to use more dynamic content. But, you know, my list right now is about 3,000, 3,100. So it's not like, that's not gonna push the needle on my business to have a heavily segmented list. Down the road, it's certainly in the cards, but for now, it's not something I'm getting super fancy with.
The other one I'd probably just throw in there quickly would be like personalization. And I'd say you've got to be really careful with personalization. So it can be done really well, but the problem with personalization, so I'm talking about, you know, Dear Ryan, you know, blah, blah, blah type thing, we're inserting variables. The problem with that is if you allow people to enter their own data, you can guarantee they're going to enter some garbage. They're going to type the name in up, you know, all caps or whatever, and then they'll blame you for getting their name wrong. So I've had that, you know, that's not how you spell my name, and it's like, yeah, but you typed. They don't believe you, of course. So you got to be real careful with that stuff, unless, you know, your data's really clean.
Yeah, I do personalization through a ConvertKit actually, and they have a few features that allow you to remove the caps and just keep the first letter capitalized. And if someone enters like their first and last name in the first name field, you could remove the last name from it. So there is some stuff like that, but I'd agree that you want to maybe be careful with personalization.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had those letters, haven't we? Like, you know, dear first name or something like that, you know. I actually got a great one, which was from an outbound marketing company, and they sent me an email which was like, dear Wilkinson, my second name, you know, we can help you, you know, send really personalized emails. I thought,
exactly.
no, I'll not click that. Okay, cool. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to be having a look at just click this on.
It should, you see, how should you send
Oh,
emails?
how, I'm getting, how and who confused. So basically, we run a survey every year of it was 400 firms last year, and we asked them various questions about what they're doing in terms of marketing. So I've just posted the link to that in the chat. So that's the report that we write, and you'll see a bunch of different stats in there. And one of them is that only 48% of firms have email marketing software. So, you know, interested to know what you think, Ryan, in terms of you've mentioned ConvertKit, you know, which, well, I suppose before we talk about specific platforms, the benefits of using, or not even benefits, like why you shouldn't use something like Outlook or Gmail versus a proper email marketing app.
Yeah, so I have someone that sends me an email once a week, and obviously is not using an email marketing app, and has about, I don't know, 200 people CC'd onto it. So everybody sees who he's sending the email to, and it can create a huge long thread of conversations between people that should not be seeing everyone else's email address. So that's really not the way to do it. You need to be using some kind of app. They're very inexpensive. Some of them are very simple to use. We can go into the we can talk about some app options. There's a few like that I've used in the past before, and I settled with ConvertKit. But definitely, you're going to need an app. You should not be having an email list managed through Gmail or Outlook. I think there's, you know, and if you want to scale this aspect of things, you need some layers of automation in place. So certainly you're going to need an app if you're going to get into email marketing. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Matt.
I mean, yeah, we could talk about different apps. There are hundreds of these apps out there, and we've all got our different preferences, but they're all pretty good, and they all pretty much do the same thing. You know, all the kind of big players like MailChimp, Campaign Monitor. We use HubSpot. You know, at BizInc, we have an email marketing platform where we actually write the content as well. So ours is specific for accounting firms. It might not have some of the bells and whistles of some of those other ones, but it does the basic things, which is, you know, I think you need an editor and templates. So, you know, the ability to make nicely formatted emails and repeat the same template. You need list management. So, you know, basically different databases in there, and that ability to segment or tag, as Ryan mentioned. Automation is important as well. So that could be things like a sequence of automated emails when someone signs up for your newsletter or downloads an ebook, what people call funnels. We won't go into that. Hey, Ryan.
Well, we won't touch on that, and maybe we'll do another webinar on that one.
Yeah. Funnels is the buzzword of the last 12 months, I think, in marketing. Yeah. But, you know, that's all a funnel is just some automated emails. And on all of these platforms do that stuff. And probably the final one is you need reporting as well. So those numbers that we're talking about, open rate, click rate, you need to be able to get that stuff out of your platform as well. So, you know, the one I really like, it's been around for years, it's one of the originals, is Campaign Monitor. If you want a real simple tool, I like simple things that don't have, you know, I'm not a fan of MailChimp because of all the monkeys, and I think they do CRM and all of that stuff. So I just like, it's focused on one thing. I've not used ConvertKit. Is that a good one?
Yeah, so I think it's geared more towards like creators, and what I really bought into with ConvertKit is the simplicity of the templates and the simplicity of the emails that are being sent off and the look and feel of those emails. Obviously, you can duplicate that in other platforms as well. But so I started with an app called Review. Part of what my newsletter is curating content. So I find interesting content on the web, and every week I send accountants an email. Here's the top 5 most interesting things you should know about if you're building an online scalable firm. So a big part of my newsletter is content curation. And when I started, the first app I used was something called Review. They had a free tier for up to 50 subscribers. not a ton of bells and whistles, but it allowed me to very easily bookmark content that I was finding on the web and just drop it into the app or the newsletter that it was generating, and it would really create the emails very, very easily and quickly. So it was easy, it was free to start, very cheap to get going, and so review is revue.co. So I'll just drop that here in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Couple
then,
of other ones. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you carry on.
yeah. And then I needed something a little bit more robust, and I did my research. And like you said, Matt, MailChimp is one of the most popular ones, but it's a real beast now. I don't even know if you would consider it an email marketing app. It's like, it does a billion different things, and I usually like to stick with an app that does one thing very well.
Yeah.
ConvertKit, I liked because it was a simple platform. They subscribed to a simple email philosophy where the email that you're sending looks like it's actually like, and this is just for me personally, other people like different approaches, but I want the emails that I send to look like an email that's written in Gmail. Like, I don't have formatting, I don't have colors, my template is basically non-existent. It just looks like a very simple me to you email, and that's the vibe I want to give off. And that's kind of the philosophy that ConvertKit subscribes to as well. So don't want to go too much in depth there, but I've ended up settling on something called ConvertKit.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with the simple thing. And I actually, we'll talk about the newsletters that we both send later. One of the stories in my one this week was about an email I got from Wikipedia. So it's from Catherine Mayer, the CEO of Wikipedia. Now, it wasn't directly from her. She sent it out, but it is the nastiest template you've ever seen.
Oh, really?
It looks like it, but the email is really effective. And I do a bit of a breakdown on why that works. But fancy templates aren't a great thing. The thing about email is you're trying to write. A good tip when you're writing emails is write it to a person. So even though you're sending an email to, let's say, 3,000 people, you're not writing to 3,000 people. You should be writing to one person. So think about who's on your list and write it like you almost like you'd be talking to that person. That's the kind of effect that you're trying to go for. Before we move on,
agree.
Yeah, okay, cool. So before we move on to what emails you should send, a couple of other apps that have been thrown out there. Active Campaign is a good one. That's got some really nice marketing automation on the back of it at a price that's a lot less than HubSpot, which hurts me every time I pay that bill every month for our team. Rachel likes Infusionsoft. So yeah, look, I think the message here is there's lots of good platforms. If they do those things, that really what's more important is the content, and that's what we're going to talk about next.
Cool. Let's get to it.
Cool. So in terms of what to send, I think there are 3 types of emails, broadly that you're going to fall into, which would be newsletters, email blasts, so things like promotional emails, like you're trying to sell somebody something, and automations. So I'm interested to know, and we're going to launch a quick poll again, if you send any of those type of emails or none of them. So I'm just going to launch this poll. Which type of emails do you send? Newsletters, email blasts, automated emails, or none? I guess the other one that I debated putting into this poll was like outbound emails, but I thought we'll keep that out of here, because what I mean by an outbound email will be more out of your inbox, one-to-one, where you're trying to do kind of outreach to a prospect. So we'll keep that out of here, because, and I also know most accountants don't send that stuff anyway. So, so I'll give you a bit more time to just finish off those votes. Cool. Okay, let's close that off. So let's have a look at those results. I'll just share them with you. So, we've got 44% of you sending newsletters, 40% of people sending nothing. So hopefully we can encourage you through this session to change that. 20% doing email blasts, 24% doing automated emails. Interesting. So, I mean, for me, the newsletter is a no-brainer. That you've got clients and you should be sending them a newsletter. But email blasts, to me, that's where you make the money. Now, I know, Ryan, you do your selling in your newsletter as well. But if I was an accounting firm, I'd be running this newsletter, but every month I'd be sending at least an email blast to clients, one to prospects as well, with something that they might be interested in, as well as the newsletter as well, because that is really how you start converting your list into clients. So maybe we'll talk about those a little bit more. Newsletters, Ryan, that's something you're obviously really experienced with, the Future Firm newsletter. How do you go about putting the content together? You mentioned, you've got some feeds and things like that to curate the content.
So now what I do is, and look, I don't have 20 years of email marketing experience behind me, Matt. So I'm still learning the ropes here. But I try to put everything. I have a weekly email that I send off, which really focuses on providing the highest quality content possible and just making it so valuable that no one in my target market or audience would actually want to unsubscribe from that. So I'm really focused on how could I deliver content that's actually going to be actionable and actually help someone run their accounting firm. That's really what I'm focused on. And 9 times out of 10, there's no promotional content. Like, I'm not promoting myself at all. And I think, like Rachel asked, earlier in this in the chat, like, what are some of the mistakes you can make with email marketing? I think it's being overly promotional, because nobody wants that kind of stuff filling up their inbox. So I'm really focused on valuable content. And then from time to time, I'm going to sprinkle in some promotional content in my own newsletter, which, may or may not be the right way to do it, but for my purposes, it's been working well. Like, just as an example, there's last week I announced a new membership program for Future Firm. And that ended up getting, out of a list of around 3,000, that ended up getting around 200 signups. So I was able to make that like front and center of the email for that particular week in question. And because I don't overload people with promotional stuff all the time, that came across well. So I'm very, very conscious of not overloading people with promotional stuff and really just focusing on the content. And the other thing I could do, I think is interesting, which you can do in all of your emails, is put just a little note at the bottom of each email under your name that just says, P.S., by the way, if you need help with this, get in touch with me. Or, by the way, we have 10 open spots available for cash flow projections at the moment. If you're interested, get in touch with me. Something along those lines. Just a very gentle PS at the bottom of the email. And generally speaking, you're going to get some interest out of that. So that's the way I run it. I also see a lot of others, as Matt mentioned, in addition to the newsletter, you could have those promotional blasts, which are completely separate from the regular email that you would send out. So this is kind of the way that I run my newsletter, which may or may not suit the way that you want to run your newsletter.
No, I think that's pretty close to what we do, and definitely with a newsletter, it's a newsletter, right? You're bringing people interesting content. But having said that as well, I think that it's almost a courtesy to, if people are interested in what you do and there's a way you can help them, that you mention that. So it's not about being pushy to me. It's saying, like you did, here's a thing that we've got, and here's how to sign up for it. And it's really simple. You're still doing your interesting content. So the example I would give is like HubSpot. Probably you've engaged with some, they do really good inbound content. This was a few years ago. I used to get these ebooks from them and read them. There's these guys, I need to check out HubSpot, what they do. And it was really hard for me to find what they did. I was clicking through on things, and so there wasn't that call to action. So that I found that quite annoying. So they did all this good inbound content. It's like, now I'm in buy mode. I want to do that. So I think, like the PS or just keeping it nice and subtle is really important. But yeah, I think with email blasts, if you've got people are interested in a certain thing, then sending them the occasional email saying, here's this thing where we can help you with that problem, And if you want it, here you go. You don't need to dress it up and anything more than that. Keep it nice and simple. I think that's really, really important. And that's how we convert a lot of people on our lists into, well, certainly into, what I would call leads. So, they'll book a demo or take that next step in the sales process. And I don't think that's being pushy. I think that's just, I'd almost consider it politeness that, if you've got people who are interested in what you do, you give them an option to get involved with that. So the other thing I kind of thought we could have a chat about, and we sort of joked about funnels earlier. So me and Ryan talked about this a while back, because everyone wants a funnel, but they're not kind of sure what's in the funnel or what the funnel does or anything like that. But, we'll put that to one side. But email automation is very powerful when it's used properly. And I was wondering, Ryan, what email automations you recommend?
Yeah, and I don't get super fancy with it, truthfully, but I think there's certain sequences you could have where there's a series of emails that go out, or emails that are triggered based on certain actions. Like if someone if someone downloads, like the way that people join my list is they're down, like they'll see one of my blog posts, they'll see some kind of pop-up that comes onto the screen, which provides a content upgrade to that blog post, which is essentially like, if people like the blog posts, I might have like a downloadable PDF related to that blog post. They'll download that PDF and then they'll get added to my email list. So then a very simple automation would be like a thank you message for, joining the list, for instance. And then there could be a series of emails that are sent out afterwards, which kind of says, by the way, if you like this, maybe you want to read that. So, this kind of nurtures that relationship. But I have very, very simple ones in place. I have email automations in place. One of the things you want to do is maintain a healthy list. It's great to have, thousands of people on your list, but if half of them aren't reading your emails, that actually is not, that's not a good thing. And that you can be flagged as spam. You can have your emails be flagged as spam for, some of the other subscribers on your list that actually do read those emails. So you want to clean up your list every so often. So, I'll have like emails that go out once a quarter for people that are considered cold subscribers who haven't opened an email in the last, I think it's 60 days. And there's a series of emails that goes out in an automated fashion based on that allows me to then scrub or clean my list to keep it to keep those open rates and the deliverability nice and fresh. So there's a variety of things you can do on the automation side of things, and these are just a few things that I do.
Cool. We do automation, so we use HubSpot, so it's also our CRM, which gives you a bit more option in terms of what you can automate on. And if someone mentioned ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, they would do that too. And what we also do is things like when a client's website goes live, we send them a 6-month reminder, a 3-month reminder to check in, see how it's all going, that kind of thing. So what I'm saying there is you can do that customer success stuff as well. So maybe, the anniversary of a client joining your firm, you could send them something, that kind of thing as well. Just can be nice to automate that, the stuff that stops clients churning. It's really nice to be able to put that stuff on automations, even if it's saying book a meeting with us, after you've done a job for them, 3 months after, book a meeting, that kind of thing can work really nicely.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's move on to the final one, which is
All right.
when to send emails. So we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier on. And as I mentioned, this came up in a discussion on LinkedIn, and there are some interesting email benchmarks that I'm going to post into the chat here. So Campaign Monitor do some really good statistical research if you want to have a look at that across all kinds of different industries. What I have found is that, this stuff, it's hard to get what I would call hard data on this stuff unless you're sending, tens of thousands of emails. So my business I had in the UK, an e-commerce business, I think our list was 70,000 at its biggest. So I could make some pretty good statistical decisions off that. But our lists that we typically send to a business, similar to yours, Ryan, like 3,000 here, 5,000 there. So I'm always wary to say, this is, I would never say like, I definitely know this because of that, when we make a decision like that. So what I would say is that Monday and Friday are often not great days to send promotional stuff. We send our newsletter on a Friday, so that I think people do read stuff on a Friday. But if you're trying to send stuff to convert people, I think Tuesday to Thursday, kind of 10 to 2 p.m. tends to work best, which is what the industry stats have borne out for years and years. Is that kind of what you found, Ryan?
Yeah, I've read a few different reports on this, and I've read some that are in line with that. I've read others where statistically there's not a huge difference. I don't know if there's an overarching consensus. I could be wrong on that. But that being said, I try to put myself in the head of who you're sending it to. Like, as a former accounting firm owner, like, I don't want to read about accounting stuff on the weekend, and my headspace is not like into consuming content first thing Monday morning, and neither is it like in the afternoon on a Friday, for instance. So I send my newsletter on every Tuesday morning at 7:40 a.m. Eastern time. I think the most important thing is consistency of when the emails are sent. So if you stick to Tuesday at 7:40 a.m., like, people need to know that they're going to get that at the same time every single week. Otherwise, you start seeing things float about in your inbox, and you're like, who is this person again? Why am I getting this email? Like, I'm on a lot of different newsletters, and I'm very regularly saying, who is this person? Like, why is this person emailing me? Like, did I subscribe to this newsletter? So you want people to really develop a routine with your name and your newsletter, and a lot of it has to do with consistency about send times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tim Ferriss, if anyone gets his one, is the famous one, and people are looking out for that. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking about the webinar, was that it's kind of like, I mean, we don't watch TV in the same way as we used to, but it's like the TV show that you used to look forward to at a certain time. That's the kind of feeling I think you're trying to create, is that familiarity of it's always going to be at that time. So yeah, I think Ryan's right. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can pick a stat to back anything. You can find an internet article to back any position you're going to take on this stuff. Pick something and stick to it. And I think that's going to work really well. But I do think that those days in the middle of the week do tend to, over time, I've seen we get better performance out of stuff that over all kinds of different emails in those times.
And by the same extension there, Matt, I think, like, not only consistency with send times, but and days, but consistency among the consistency around the theme of your newsletter as well. Like, for instance, my theme is like a top 5. So I curate the top 5 most interesting things I found for accountants that week to help them run an online scalable firm. So that's my theme. You have a theme for the newsletter for your BizInc bulletin that I'm a part of as well. Like, you have to have a theme. People have to be familiar with it. They'll get to know that. They'll get comfortable with it, and that reduces the chance of people unsubscribing.
Yeah, definitely. I probably should have included this on an earlier slide, but one thing, it's not necessarily a when thing, is repeating the same stuff works really well. So this is not so much for newsletters, it kind of is a little bit, is that people don't always take notice of what you do, or hardly, it takes everyone knows this sort of, it takes a number of touches to get someone to take action. You can, again, it's one of these, people say, 7 touches or 11, doesn't matter. It's again one of these kind of statistics that, the principle is more important than the number. So if you're sending, say, email blasts, if you send that out and you get a lukewarm response, that doesn't mean if you send it the next month, it won't work really well. And you might not know why that is, but that is definitely what happens. We have certain email campaigns that we've sent for over 5 years, give or take the same campaign. And you see that with big brands, right? They use the same adverts. So that consistency of what you do is really important. And that goes through some of the stuff that like Ryan was saying, the template that you use, the theme, but even like literally reusing the same content is not lazy, or people won't get bored of that. It's actually really effective. So, you look at the best marketers, they use the same messages. Look at what politicians do, right? Simple phrases that they use again and again. And at first they seem almost like facile, but it gets into people's heads. So that repeatability, I think, is something that is really effective with, not just email or marketing, but particularly with email.
Absolutely. Fully agree on that.
Cool. Well, we want to have a bit of time for questions at the end now. And before we do that, just wanted to tell you about these fabulous newsletters that we write that we've been telling you about. So I'm going to post a link to these in the chat, and we're also going to do a quick poll. Now, if we do the poll, we can just subscribe you to them if you can't be bothered signing up there yourself. So I'm just going to launch that poll as well. And let us know if you want to subscribe to one of those, and we will do that for you. Or you can say no thanks. So Ryan,
we have a little competition going here now.
I know, I realized this. We've got a competition.
We just set this up. Hopefully it's 50-50.
I actually realized that when I was doing it this morning. I thought, yes. So look, Ryan's is a great newsletter. I subscribe to not a lot of newsletters, to be honest. Like, I unsubscribe from a lot of newsletters. Ryan's is really good. He actually really scours the web for some really interesting stories, and it's one that I will always pause on and read the whole thing every week, and I often forward bits of it to my team. So if you want to keep on top of like the very latest in the accounting profession and industry, then that's one you want to subscribe to.
And because I want to win this poll, I'm going to say Matt's is horrible. You should not. No, like honestly, I'm subscribed to a bunch of newsletters too, and I unsubscribe to ones that aren't helpful. And in terms of marketing, I'm a really big fan of Matt's newsletter, and I often look at his and because I'm curating content, sometimes I take some of his content and put it into mine. So so I think he's got an awesome marketing newsletter.
Cool. Thank you very much. You still didn't win. Should I share the results?
Oh, I'm scared to see this. Let's do it.
It's close. I thought you beat me. It's close.
All right.
Well, cool. We'll send you a link out anyway, so you can subscribe afterwards if you didn't want. But if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A panel, and we'll ask those. We've got one question from Mark already. So Mark is asking, what about sending cold emails to people we don't even know? He can get hold of 72,000 business details within 30 miles of his office. So I would say don't do it. First of all, I'm going to say you're probably going to get in trouble potentially with spam with that one. Look, hardly anyone ever gets prosecuted for spam, if we're honest, but it's not legit to do that. I don't know where you're based, Mark, but Ryan, Canada's got some pretty robust spam laws. You get in big trouble for that stuff. I would
it's
just
not
say
effective. It's just
not effective. It's quality over quantity, right?
I think when I started my firm, so I started with 0 clients, had no clue what I was doing, no clue about marketing. I think my very first strategy was to look at like an online business directory, and I literally got a whole bunch of emails and I went one by one, and it was the worst marketing strategy of my entire life. 0 hits, obviously. I spent hours and hours, hundreds of emails. Not scalable at all at the time, obviously. And those cold emails just are super, super ineffective. Unless you have, the name of the game right now is you got to warm up those relationships. You just can't come out of the blue. So it would not, like, forget about the anti-spam laws. It just would not be an effective strategy.
Yeah. The way to sort of go after cold stuff is, you might want to do something like look at LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it's a totally different type of email. So I would be doing that stuff one-on-one. There are good ways to do that one-on-one, but I wouldn't be doing it through a bulk emailing tool. That's not the way to do it. So the fact it doesn't take time isn't really the question. It's that, like what Ryan said, it just won't work. You'd be better putting your time into something else. All marketing is like a risk, well, not so much a risk, it's kind of like an effort to reward ratio. And I think the effort for that one is just not worth it. If anyone else has got any questions, yeah, please use that Q&A panel. We'll stay on until the end of the hour. Couple of things. So we just talked about spam there. I think it's really worth considering that because, Canada, where Ryan is, pretty harsh spam laws. I think you got to be really careful.
Yeah, Europe as well.
Yeah, Europe's got them. I mean, technically, lots of places have got them. It often doesn't end up with much stuff happening with them. But the key thing is, it's about permission. Do you have permission to send somebody that email? And so, you need to be able to prove that permission. If you, with your clients, I don't know the case in Canada, but if you've got a business relationship with somebody, it's legitimate to send them an email, right? Is that correct, right?
I can't say that I'm an expert on this, but what I don't arbitrarily add anybody onto my list. I always want permission, opt-in. So I'm not, even if I have a client list, I'm not just going to arbitrarily put them onto that list. I want their permission, so you want to make a bit of a pitch and say, I have a little email that I send every so often, every week, every month, whatever it is, that I think would help you. Would you like to be added to this? You could always unsubscribe. A simple email just like that. And most of your clients are going to say yes. So if you're framing it in terms of being able to help them and your email is actually valuable and helpful, like why would someone not want to do that? If your email is just like, promoting yourself week in, week out, obviously nobody would be interested, and the ones that do opt into it would unsubscribe fairly quickly. So I think that's really what it comes down to. Yeah,
cool. Great question from Justin, which is, wants some advice about how to make their email campaigns seem more personal. So, don't want it to feel like they send an email out to thousands of people. How do you make it sound personal? So I think it's about understanding your audience, in my opinion, would be to say, where Ryan and myself both have a theme for our newsletters. So, I don't like blowing my own trumpet, but I think I write quite a good newsletter, and Ryan's is excellent as well. Sign up to those and see what we do is that, we're writing about very focused topics. There's a mix of content in there, short, longer stuff, kind of our opinions versus, just sharing something, different things like that. So it's not necessarily about being personal as such as being interesting and relevant is what I would say, because, you can't necessarily be personal to 3,000 people, but if they're all interested in the same thing, you can be really relevant to them.
Yeah. I'd agree with that, and I'd also add something that I mentioned earlier. Well, first off, like I want it to come across that I'm writing an email from me to you. So that's the language that I use. I'm not saying, hello everybody in the email. I'm saying, I'm really referring to using terminology like you, like, are you having issues with this, or maybe you should check this out. Like I'm really using that kind of terminology. So it's an email me to you kind of thing. And the other thing is really just making it look like a plain text email as much as possible. I feel that gives a bit of a more personal feel. That's my opinion. That's the way that I run my newsletter. It's not the only way to do it, but I'm very conscious about like stripping away as much formatting as possible.
Yeah. One bit of formatting you have and I have in my email is a photograph. I think that is another little thing you can add personality with. The other thing I'd say is to really double down on what you say about copywriting. And I'd love to do a whole session on copywriting. It's the most underrated thing in marketing, the ability to write. Because we all can write, I think people think they're writers and they're two different things. Writing is a real skill you've got to develop. But some quick tips would be, writing it to you. You're writing to a person. The thing that I do with all of my content is read it back. So it should sound like I'm talking now, like you're talking to a person. If it's written in all that kind of corporate, business jargony language, nobody wants to read that. It should be just like, we're talking now. That's the language to use. Don't think you've got to be kind of professional or whatever because you're an accountant. You should be talking to somebody like you would if they came into your office. So that's the quick tip. If you read it back and it sounds like you wouldn't speak, write it again.
That's a good tip. I like that.
Cool. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Ryan, thanks so much for being on the session today, and particularly for stepping into the breach where I dropped out. That's always a bit of a heart stopper when that happens, but luckily it came back pretty quickly.
No problem. And you know what? We'll have to do this again 3 months from now to see who wins that last poll, Matt.
We've got to do it, yeah. It sounds like you're pretty competitive like me.
Very competitive, yeah. I won't sleep tonight.
Funny. Cool. Well, thanks very much for coming along. That was great. I really enjoyed it. And thanks to all of you for joining the session. If you've got any further questions, we'll send out our details and we'll send out links to our emails and all that nice stuff. And yeah, have a great rest of the day.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks, Matt.
Thank you. See ya.